Pierre Police Department.
Yeah, I need to file a missing persons report.
Your name, please?
I'm Brian Clark.
Who's missing?
Tami Reay.
The call came in approximately a half hour after she was supposed to be at work.
There was a massive hunt all over the Pierre area. Lots and lots of law enforcement and local volunteers.
It's a big area, and so we got a helicopter from the National Guard, and they could do some flybys and see if they could locate her.
Through my years when being a detective, I'd never seen anything like this.
Where can I go find Tami right now and do the right thing?
You know, all this evidence points at me, but I'm hoping that the body is found because it'll be something to set me free.
Tamera Dawnell Burns, also known as Tami, resided in Billings, Montana, with her husband Brad Reay and their 11-year-old daughter, Haylee Reay. Tami was employed at Skyview High School, where her daughter was also a student. However, the details about the Brad's work is not specified. After living in Billings for 14 years, they then moved to a small town of Pierre, South Dakota in August of 2004 due to Brad securing a managerial position at Walmart. A year into their new life in Pierre, Haylee began to observe escalating tension between her parents.
I noticed that my dad was starting to work more and more. And so when my dad's working all the time and my mom's not around him, can't have a happy marriage.
This strain eventually led to the couple announcing their impending divorce to Haylee.
I was devastated. I didn't want to have a broken family. I thought we were all happy.
Later, on the seemingly ordinary day of February 8, 2006, the Reay family's life took a dramatic turn. That morning, Brad woke Haylee up for school. Upon waking, Haylee went to have breakfast and noticed her mother Tami's absence. She checked her mother's room and the garage, where Tami's car was still parked, but found no sign of her. When Haylee asked her father about Tami's whereabouts, Brad evaded the question, suggesting that Tami might be at her boyfriend's house.
I was confused because what boyfriend and why wouldn't she tell me?
However, at around 10:30 a.m. that same day, the Pierce Police Department received a phone call reporting a missing person.
Pierre Police Department.
Yeah, I need to file a missing persons report.
Your name, please?
I'm Brian Clark.
Who's missing?
Tami Reay.
Spell the last name?
Reay.
However, the caller, Brian Clark, who was the assistant manager at the Kmart store where Tami used to work, reported her missing. He stated that Tami was an acquaintance and it was unusual for her not to show up at the store by 10 a.m. He called the police about her absence just half an hour after her usual arrival time, which the police found a bit strange. During the call, he also revealed that he and Tami were having an affair and he suspected that her husband, Brad, might have discovered this and could be involved in her disappearance.
Foul play could be suspected here.
Okay, and why do you think that, sir?
Hopefully this is discreet, but me and her have been having an affair. Apparently her husband has found out about it.
Okay, what is his name?
Brad. Reay.
After this, the police questioned Brad about Tami's disappearance. He stated that he hadn't seen her since the previous night. He then gave the police permission to search his house. During the search, the police found Tami's car still in the garage. Beside the car, they discovered a small amount of blood. When they opened the car door, there was a distinct smell of bleach, suggesting someone had tried to quickly clean up evidence. With all this evidence and signs of foul play, the police had to obtain an official arrest warrant against Brad. In the meantime, the police interviewed Haylee, who was at school at the time. They asked her about her parents' relationship, aiming to understand the dynamics at their home.
Okay, tell me when you figured out your mom and dad were maybe having problems or...
Yeah, they told me they were getting a divorce.
Okay. Did they tell you why at all?
because my mom doesn't love my dad anymore, and my dad's never home from work.
4 hours passed and there was still no sign of Tami. The police then brought Brad to the police station for a formal interview. In the interview, Brad stated that he came home at 10:30 p.m. the previous night and Tami was not at home. He later said that he heard a vehicle outside his home, and when he went to see, he saw Tami getting into another person's car. He then went to the garage, took Tami's Durango, and started following the other car.
So why did you take Durango next truck?
The Durango's a lot faster, and he has more maneuver.
So you were planning on going on a high-speed pursuit here?
Further, he stated that when he was following the car, he had to stop because Tami's car stopped working. Later, he was approached by a South Dakota Highway Patrol trooper. When the trooper asked him what he was doing there, he told him that he had just gone to the store and would head home after that.
What's your name?
Brad Reay, R-E-A-Y.
Do you have any ID with you at all?
No, I must have ran to the store real quick.
However, the next day when the police asked the patrol trooper about Brad's story, the trooper confirmed it but also mentioned Brad's store story. When the police asked him why he lied to the officer, he started making excuses, saying it was none of his business and so on. When asked about the blood found on Tami's car, he continued the same story, stating he didn't know anything about it. This raised serious suspicions about him, given the story he had told so far. Further, during the interrogation, the police asked him about his wife's affair. After this, officer arrested Brad and he remains in custody without the possibility of bail. Detectives then started searching their house again. Inside the house, they didn't find anything, but when they searched Tami's car, they found more blood which had been washed out, but its marks were still there. They have got some evidence, but none of this evidence directly implicates Brad as a perpetrator. After this, the police started interviewing their other person of interest, Ryan Clark. Ryan told them that a day before her disappearance, he and Tami had visited a hotel and that was the last time he saw Tami. Later, on February 9, 2006, Detective Troy Swenson visited the foster home where Haylee was staying and told her that the DNA found in the car matched the DNA with Tami's personal items.
You're gonna have to help me with this because this is gonna be tough for me too. I got little kids at home too, so we believe that your mom's dead. There's no easy way that I could tell you that, sweetheart. Okay? Right now, your dad has been arrested for her murder.
The police then distributed missing person posters throughout the area and assembled a huge task force to search for Tami, including local people and volunteers. After hours of searching, the police discovered something near the Oahe Dam, something that disclosed Tami's whereabouts. The police discovered a naked body of a woman with multiple stab wounds in her neck. It was none other than Tami Reay.
There was multiple stab wounds, very deep lacerations. Somebody that obviously caused this was very angry at this woman.
Later, the forensic report unveiled some gruesome discoveries. It stated that she had approximately 48 to 53 stab wounds on her neck and numerous defensive wounds on her hands. However, they didn't find any DNA samples or any other evidence indicating that Brad was the perpetrator. Brad remained in custody as the primary person of interest. A month after the discovery of Tami's body, the district attorney received a letter that completely changed the direction of the case. The letter was from an unknown cousin of Brian Clark, claiming that Brian and the cousin had conspired and killed Tami together. The police were taken aback by this letter because it described the motels that Brian had mentioned to the officers, it described Tami's car, and most importantly, it detailed how they killed Tami. It stated that Brian and Tami had sex in the hotel and after an argument, Brian raped her and then killed her. The most crucial piece of information in the letter turned out to be about the condom they had used during sex. It stated that Brian had lost the condom inside her body.
That condom had not been found during the initial autopsy.
The forensic department then re-examined the body and confirmed that there was indeed a condom inside her body. After this pivotal discovery, the police immediately moved to interrogate Brian. However, his wife stated that he was at home on the night when this atrocity occurred. A few days later, when the DNA reports came in, the police's hope of finally apprehending the culprit behind this case was once again dashed. The report stated that due to the condom remaining inside her body, there was insufficient DNA, and it neither confirmed nor denied that it was Brian's.
Due to degradation over time being inside the acids of the body, nothing of DNA value was found in or on that condom.
When the officers didn't find any clues, they reviewed Brad's interview and found out that Brad was talking about the DNA. He was saying that when the officers find Tami's body, there will be some sort of DNA on it, and that will prove his innocence.
You see evidence all the time that get compiled on guys in their DNA and stuff like that.
This further raised suspicions because the police started believing that it was all Brad's plan to frame Brian. The police then again started searching Brad's home to find some evidence that could connect Brad to Brian because earlier he had told the police that he didn't know anything about Brian, so they had to find a solid lead to break through this case. However, during the search, they discovered a small recording device inside Brad's bedroom drawer. And when they played the device, this is what they heard.
Excuse me, I just need to hear your voice because Brad left me a long note in my car. She's just making it really hard because he doesn't understand.
The officers found out that it was a call recording of Tami talking to Brian. After further investigation, they found out that some files were deleted in the recordings, and in some files, they found that Brad's voice was pretending to be Tami.
Brad's voice on there twice, pretending to be Tami.
Brad might know what we're doing, so we need to be more careful. So, can't call me at home or do any of that, all right?
However, they later discovered how Brad had planned to uncover Tami's affair. He had hidden his digital recorder in her car and had also placed some flowers and a letter there. Brad surmised that upon reading the letter, Tami would call her boyfriend, thereby revealing some information about him. As he anticipated, Tami called her boyfriend, and the first thing she stated on her call was her boyfriend's name, Brian Clark. Detectives can now prove that Brad was already aware of Brian, despite his claims of ignorance. However, one question remains: what about the letter? How did he manage to pin the murder on Brian from inside custody? Subsequently, the police began checking his letters and calls but found nothing. Later, when they checked his visitation records, they discovered that the day before the letters were received, Brad's twin brother Brett had visited on March 8, 2006. The letter was received on March 9th. The police then caught up with Brett outside his home, and upon checking his car, they found a yellow notepad. On that notepad, they found a copy of the letter that they had received on March 9th. When questioned, Brett confessed that Brad had given him the letters, which he copied and sent to the location that his brother had specified. This proves that Brian was innocent and had nothing to do with Tami's murder. But even if we agree to the fact that Brad had planned to frame Brian, then how did he find Brian's condom? Following Brett's statement, the police interrogated Brad again, and once again he repeated the same story, stating that he didn't know anything. However, the police had acquired substantial evidence, but there was still a possibility that Brad could evade justice. But just a couple of days later, they finally got the solid lead they had been seeking for a long time. They found 3 large trash bags full of bloody items hidden on a traffic island on the outskirts of the city.
It was 3 large trash bags, absolutely full of bloody bedding. Flat sheet, fitted sheet, quilts, pillows, shams, and a large blue tarp, also with a lot of blood on it.
With all the evidence in hand, the police were finally ready for the trial. Then, in January 2007, the trial began. At the trial, Brad confessed to disposing of the body, but he claimed that he had only done this to protect the real killer, whom he suspected was his daughter, Haylee Reay. However, the evidence provided by the police refuted his claim. The evidence was all about how he killed Tami. They stated that on that day, Brad had returned home earlier before Tami arrived. He had covered the bed with sheets so cleverly that Tami had no idea about it. Later, when Tami was sleeping, Brad entered her room and stabbed her 5 times in the back and slit her throat. After her death, he then picked up her body, put it in her car, and then dropped it off at the location where the body was found. Regarding the condom, Brad was trailing Tami and Brian, and whenever they had sex, Brian would discard the condom out of the window. Brad knew that if the police found Brian's DNA, Brian would become the person of interest. So, he collected the condom and placed it inside Tami's body. After all this evidence, Brad was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, this year on February 18th, he passed away in the Jameson Annex Infirmary. After his death, the case that had once captivated the nation faded from the headlines. The memory of Tami continues to live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her.
Having a child makes me look back at how great of a mother my mom was and how I hope that I'm being just like her.
Subscribe to our channel for more such videos and leave a comment if there's any specific case you want me to cover. Thanks for watching.